One. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Senate Transportation. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Senator Fenton, would you do us the honors?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I did want to announce, in case somebody's going to wait to see if we exec any bills. I don't want to hold you up. We are not execing any bills today, but we will have a big executive session next Tuesday. Okay? So we're going to open up the hearing for Senate Bill 153 relative to the issuance of permits for the alteration of driveways exiting onto public ways. Print small. It's okay. So who is the sponsor?
I sit before you, madam.
Oh, there you go. All right, Senator McConkey. Welcome to Senate Transportation.
Thank you. For the record, my name's Mark McConkey, Senator District 3, and I hail from the town of Freedom. Madam Chairman, I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 153 relative to the issuance of permits for alteration of driveways exiting into public ways. And as part of that process, I believe we have a 90-day threshold on that. To committee members, I have a history of transportation, having served 18 years in the House with Public Works and a lot of interaction in the 10-year plan, the capital budget with DOT and so forth. We are constantly, as committee members there, and I hear it now as a senator, on how some areas in the state can be incredibly timely and others can't be in processing driveway permits. And I come from a region up north where things tend to move relatively fast, but there are some places that don't. Time is money for everyone, especially for developers. And this is a priority, I believe, myself, with housing, and the builders have also been ardent on supporting this position. So I would hope that you can give this credence, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have.
Does anyone have any questions? I do. So, having been on former counselor and very involved in the town, some of what I've heard is that the reason that the permits can take longer in some situations is a safety issue. Have you have any familiarity with that?
I don't know quite how to address it. I'll say this. There's some projects generate more, and then safety becomes an issue. I guess I'll give you a perfect example. So we have a new housing project in Conway, part of a 3-unit project to put affordable housing in. And the first section goes in, I'm going to say 80 units, might be 60, might be whatever. And they make improvements to the highway out front, and their permit gets pushed along a little easier, only to find out that when they go to add their second building, that now the whole process starts over again. And now, instead of just dealing with the turning lane and looking at what that interaction might be with a few business owners, they're going down nearly a quarter of a mile with improvements now before they can get their next permit. My father would say to me all the time, don't come to me with problems, you come to me with solutions. And I think this is something that I'm sure we're going to have to address some staffing to a certain point. The department last year said we're about to launch a new online driveway permit process, and you're going to be happy. You're going to be pleased. And then we're going to see how many of the smaller projects that takes out of our queue. And I can tell you, I'm a contractor. I've used it for small projects. I'm a small guy, you know, a few guys, excavation business, but it has helped tremendously. So I think there should always be some guardrails. I'm willing to listen to what the department has for some of that, but I think it's certainly worthwhile. I think it's the benefit for our business community, for our housing community in the state. I probably went all around what you asked me, Madam
Well,
Chair.
I just know that like sometimes it takes longer because they have to do a traffic study or there's an issue with turning. And so I don't know that it's as black and white, but you know, we'll hear what everybody has to say.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. You could come back over here now. The chair will call Alan Hanscom from the Department of DOT. Good afternoon and welcome.
Excuse me. For the record, my name is Alan Hanscom. I'm the State Highway Maintenance Engineer for the Department of Transportation. In a previous life, I spent 26 years as a district engineer in the central part of the state and was one of, you'll find my name on the signature line on many driveway permits over those 26 years. The Department of Transportation has concerns regarding the addition of arbitrary deadlines for the issuance of driveway permits. The department is not taking a stance on the proposed legislation, but offer the following comments for the committee's consideration. The department's policy relating to driveways and access to the state highway system states 6 principles for a safe access to the highway. Provide maximum safety and protection to the traveling public through the orderly and control of traffic movement, minimize conflict points, acquire a appropriate site distance, maintain the serviceability of affected highways, which could require alterations to the existing highway, monitor the design and construction of driveway entrances and exits, and maintain compliance with RSA 23613, which was effective July 1st, 1971. The permit application, plan design and review, and issuance of driveway permits is a complicated engineering effort geared to the specifics of the proposed use of the particular driveway at the requested location. A complete driveway permit application for a major driveway has several primary components, including, but not limited to, an approved traffic impact study and a preliminary set of engineered plans showing proposed highway and driveway features, including any required mitigation. The 90-day countdown would begin once these documents have been submitted. If a driveway of any magnitude is not properly designed, the impacts of the proposed driveway may not be fully understood or properly mitigated. Resulting damage to the state roadway system may include unacceptable stormwater drainage flows, significant erosion or sedimentation, or inadequate site distance for vehicles entering or exiting the highway, among other safety features. The department's 2 main concerns are the 90-day deadline is for the entire permit process, including the time for the applicant's design and the department's review. The length of time it takes an applicant to review comments, revise designs, and submit documents is outside of the department's control. Often the department's comments results in revisions to roadway plans that can take 30 to 60 days for the applicant to address and resubmit. That leaves the department a very short time for the needed review to meet a 90-day deadline from date of receipt of a completed application. The department would have less concern if the time limit applied only to the number of working days required for the department's review, since that is within our control. The department's online permit portal software that was implemented last August is capable of tracking the days that each party is responsible for action. In any event, the department will publicize a timeline with expectations placed upon all parties, including the applicant and any town involvement, to meet the timeline. The second concern is this legislation states that the department shall issue a permit described in paragraph 2 within 90 days of receiving a completed application. And it does not permit the department to deny an application for any reason. This could lead to unsafe access points to the highway system, jeopardizing safety for all users of driveways, or driveways that cannot be legally issued for various reasons. If this bill is passed as currently proposed, the department's approach to implementing the change will be increased monitoring of deadlines above and beyond current practice. Changes resulting from HB 1202 from last year has placed increased pressure on department staff to act upon minor residential applications in a defined 60-day timeline. This present proposed change would apply to major multifamily residential applications, which would include involve traffic studies and varying levels of mitigation that might range from a simple bypass shoulder to signalize intersections with multi-lane approaches. The imposed timeline places expectations upon both the department and the applicant to achieve the desired outcomes, but the department controls only a portion of the overall process. As noted in the fiscal note, additional engineering administrative personnel will be required to review all applications to determine what category they may fall into and what levels of review and deadlines might apply. Review of major commercial non-residential driveway applications may be delayed by diversion of resources towards any application with a residential component. The use of statewide on-call contracts with private sector engineering firms are exponentially more expensive than internal engineering review, but utilizing this resource is becoming necessary to meet deadlines and expectations. The lead time to engage a consultant engineer through a statewide on-call contract will play into the 90-day timeline, with scope and fee negotiations required for each review. Department staff members are currently undertaking a critical review of the driveway permitting process to define pressure points and areas for improvement. A flowchart is being developed with time constraints associated with each step in the process to illustrate expectations on all parties to meet the 60-day and 90-day deadlines for residential driveway permit applications. Impacts on cities and towns resulting from this bill may be significant, especially those that are experiencing inordinate growth, economic expansion, or revitalization. The town of Conway, for example, has been experiencing constant, steady growth of hotel space and retail establishments for several decades. Some proposals are located on state highways and some on local roads that impact both local and state highways. Coordination between municipal planning staff and department staff is required to ensure both local and state interests are addressed. Expediting engineering review and permit issuance will have a significant financial impact on both local and state resources. The department is committed to finalizing a lean process for all the driveway permit types, publishing a timeline for expectations for review by the department and the applicant, and working through any legislation that is passed. We'd be happy to provide more details on our concerns if you wish, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members of the committee have any questions? Okay, I do. So I want to be clear. Can you confirm that you said that the department could not deny an application for any reason?
Well, the wording says the department shall issue the permit. It doesn't say review it, consider it, act upon it.
So I'm going back to this thing, safety. That's me. I'm a safety person. So if it wasn't safe you're saying it doesn't, you'd have to go forward with it anyway? Is that what you're saying?
As it's written, it says the department shall issue the permit.
Okay.
It doesn't specify that we have a way out of it.
For an average driveway permit that doesn't present a problem, would you say that 90 days is sufficient? But then maybe if there's a complicated issue, it would need more time?
The sky's the limit on how many different scenarios you can think of. There are some certain circumstances where 90 days is probably plenty. And we have examples where it takes significantly longer than that.
Do you have any statistics that you could send me that show the average time it takes in the situation of the driveway?
Absolutely. The portal system, the online portal has been in place since, I think, the middle of August. So we have a few hundred driveway permit applications in that of various flavors that can give you a sense of the size and type of permits that we're reviewing. Granted, it doesn't go back to last year or years back. We have some anecdotal reports. The prior report that we used to maintain has some information in it, but the new online portal started in August. So
Could you address the comment for me about the example that Senator McConkey gave, where the developer goes through the procedure, and then something changes, and now they have to start the permitting process all over? That does sound very arduous to me.
there's a few ways that could be addressed. I'm not familiar with this particular one. Hopefully it happened before or after my time.
Last year, we'll talk about, thank you.
But ideally, we would issue a permit for the full build out of the site over a period of time. So if there was a phase one, a phase two, a phase three, ideally it would be all addressed up front in the first, when the driveway permit's initially issued. It may have milestones where when you get to this point, you have to do this. When you get to point B, you have to do more. Many developers are uncertain of the viability of their proposal and don't want to invest inordinate sums of money on the full build out if they find out that nobody's buying their items. So there's some reluctance sometimes of, can we wait on this part until I sell some units, or I know that what I'm doing is a financial gain. So there's different scenarios that could happen.
Thank you. No one else? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair will call Nick Taylor. I just saw you in Commerce.
I know, you and Senator Fenton, this is a great day, I guess. So I am Nick Taylor. I am the director of Housing Action New Hampshire. We're a statewide housing advocacy organization, and our membership includes developers, landlords, property managers, lenders, homeless shelters, and more. We are here in support of the bill and certainly in support of the concept and trying to make something work here. And we appreciate that the department and so many others are doing the best that they can. But what we are hearing from our members is that the predictability is critical. And so having permitting processes that roll on and on for months at a time can be really challenging as they're drawing down their financing. They're making sure that their materials and construction timelines are lined up, making sure that local approvals are lined up. And when things are extended, that costs more money. And so at a time when, we have our rental vacancy rate below 1% and the rents are as high as they've ever been, figuring out how to be more efficient with the process is a top priority for Housing Action. And from what we've heard from our members, and there's a lot of conversation around the role of local municipalities, and some municipalities are taking great steps forward. There's a lot of legislation on this, but the state has a role to play too. And one of the roles that the state plays is around the permitting process. And so I do think it's a really good idea, a really good concept to try and figure out how the state can take some action here to have a more efficient and standardized process for developers. And happy to take any questions.
Members of the committee, any questions? I do.
Okay.
So I see the value in wanting to streamline things. I see merit in trying to help the developers get their projects going forward. But I feel like we have to find some sort of a compromise here for anything that would preclude some sort of safety issue. Maybe it's not a one-off 90 days, but maybe the easy ones, a sort of system to streamline. But there should be some consideration for a very problematic issue that could be a serious safety concern, because I'm pretty sure that nobody would want to compromise speed for safety.
Yeah, Senator, I appreciate the question and completely agree with you. I think finding something that works, and whether it's a prioritization conversation, whether it's, an extension of good cause or something, I think that makes total sense. and
Totally room
appreciate
for
that.
improvement, but
Yeah.
we have to, look at everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for your testimony.
Of course.
Are there no one else has signed up to speak. Are there any other members of the public? Pericles Carudis, would you like to come forward?
Yes, thank you.
You put favor but didn't speak, so that's why I didn't call on you.
I wasn't planning on speaking.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Madam
didn't forget
Chair.
you.
Members of the committee, Pericles Curtis, representing the New Hampshire Home Builders Association. I apologize. We had an expert that was supposed to be here today that was able to talk about specific examples of what they've gone through with the process, but last minute couldn't make it here. I believe in everyone's email in the committee, there was an email from a Mr. Eric Jackson from the Stabile Group that outlines some of their challenges and experiences they've faced. So I'd encourage members of the committee to review that testimony. From talking to some of our members at the board level, it is not uncommon for projects to take 18 months to go through the DOT permitting, and that was really the impetus for this bill. Thank you to Mr. Hanscom for pointing out the shall issue the permit. That was not the intent. I think it shall review and issue prior to, or some similar type language was the intent. We at the Home Builders are happy to work with the department and other stakeholders to find a solution that doesn't jeopardize, safety, but tries to encourage a little bit more efficiency, perhaps. As some of the other people that testified stated, time is money, and we are in a housing crisis, and 18 months is a long time to be waiting for a permit. And sometimes it is the difference between the deal coming online or not. And we haven't calculated what the cost is of a project being delayed by that long, but we can certainly do that if the committee would like. And I wish I was the expert, but that's now everything I know about driveway permitting.
Any questions? Do you know, or have you looked at any other states, how they've streamlined their process in the Department of Transportation for these driveway permits?
I have not. This bill is a result of, how do I put this? So in the last several months leading into the filing period, there's a lot of stakeholders and legislators in both chambers and in both parties that were asking for various solutions. They're asking for where are the pain points, where are the places that are causing delays or higher pricing. And this came as part of a very kind of in-depth internal process that we had with our key home builders. And we try to incorporate some of the larger developers with the smaller ones, so we really get a sense of some consistency across the state. So we have not looked into other states, although we are happy to do so and happy to do that through our national association. But this legislation and this language and this concept came from that several months long kind of internal exercise to try to figure out what are the things that we can do to help solve the housing crisis. Everyone keeps looking for, or we often hear, but what's the one thing? And there is no one thing. There is no one silver bullet. It really is probably a dozen or 24 things that will greatly impact the cost, the speed, and access of housing of all kinds.
Okay.
So I'm happy to try to get some of those answers about some of the other states. I just don't have them at the moment, and that was not where this bill came about.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to find a solution that's going to be amenable to everybody.
Well, if we have time, like I said, we're happy to work with some of the other stakeholders that have testified to try to see if we can maybe create some tiers or other solutions. But this is a problem from the home builder standpoint.
I do, and I appreciate that, but I think trying to solve the problem with keeping safety in mind, and maybe easy ones have a deadline, harder ones, I don't know. We have to look at it.
Yeah, we will happily meet with everybody else and try to find a solution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's always nice to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to Senate Bill 153? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 153. Thank you very much. We will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 154 relative to authorized organizations issuing multi-use decal plates. Welcome, Senator. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. And good afternoon, members of the Transportation Committee. My name is David Rochefort. I represent Senate District 1, which is the northern 2,500 square miles of the state of New Hampshire. I'm here to talk about Senate Bill 154, which has to do with snowmobiling. And if you want to come snowmobiling, our trails are open and they're groomed, and there's plenty of snow up north. So we welcome you all.
Plenty of snow here.
Yes, there is. This bill comes about as a request I got this past fall. I was approached by the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association to introduce this legislation. And New Hampshire Snowmobile Association is requesting the ability to enable their nonprofit affiliated 501c to offer decals via the existing plate decal statute. As you see from the bill, Senate Bill 154 just amends the existing statute 261B9 to add the Snow Traveler Foundation to the list of charities that are enabled to offer license plate decals using the current decal plate program offered by the Department of Safety. All of the existing regulations and the guidance in 261B are applicable, and this would just add the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association to the list of organizations that are able to offer this decal. There are representatives here from the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association to present and to answer specific questions. One of the things they did mention is that the Snow Traveler Foundation opens a channel for tax deduction donations that can be used to improve the trail system and education. And I'm just going to add, as somebody who snowmobiles regularly and lives in the heart of the North Country, the trail system needs work, and it always needs work. And this would provide an avenue where the state wouldn't be on the hook to do it. They offer a variety of programs which they can go into when they come up. Currently, there's no way for an individual or corporation to make that type of donation. So we have a lot of folks that come up north, love the trails, see what happens in the summer when we get these big storms. They want to help out, they want to participate, and there's no availability to make this type of donation. And another instance, a family contacted this snowmobile donation to make a donation in memory of their father who passed away, and there wasn't a mechanism to do it. So the foundation itself fills that void, and this bill would help create an additional potential funding source for their 501c3. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I know there are folks behind me that would probably be able to answer questions much more thoroughly than I would.
Does anyone have any questions?
All right, we'll
Being
see you
done.
out. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
all out on the trails.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The chair will call Dan Gould. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thought it was on. There you go. So thank you again for having me today. My name is Dan Gould. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association. I appear before you and the committee to express strong support for SB 154. The New Hampshire Snowmobile Association was founded in 1969 to serve as a unified voice for the snowmobile community, the clubs, businesses, distributors. We currently have approximately, I believe, 23,000 members, 96 clubs statewide that promote snowmobiling as a safe family recreation. I want to thank Senator Rochford for introducing SB 154, which aligns with the NHSA's recent exploration of funding avenues to support the Snow Traveler Foundation, which was established in 2024. While initially exploring the license plate program, NHSA identified the existing plate decal program operated by the Department of Safety as a more efficient mechanism to generate financial support and awareness for the foundation. The Snow Traveler Foundation's mission is to cultivate a thriving snow trail community inclusive of both motorized and non-motorized enthusiasts. It was created in response to frequent inquiries about how individuals could make charitable contributions to support New Hampshire's snowmobile trail network. The fundraising will be used for critical initiatives such as new trail signage and safety programs that will complement the existing grants from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, which do not fully cover all the maintenance and safety needs. We believe that SB 154 will enhance the foundation's visibility through the decal program and encourage both awareness and contributions through the trail system. As you probably are aware, snowmobiling is self-funded through registrations. Snowmobilers pay to snowmobile, and that money is then used to maintain the trails. But those funds barely cover 50% of the overall cost that the clubs have to offset with fundraisers and other ways to bring in some income. So I'm happy to take questions.
Members of the committee, any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
I could now.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I was trying to reach my hand up. Could I
Oh,
ask a question?
of course you can.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. The previous senator was speaking accolades of your community as I would. We're always cautioned by Gene Chandler and others that we can never call ourselves the North Country unless we get past the notch. But the snowmobile community is a boon to Carroll County, a boon. I'm a small shop owner, and without them, skiers come by, you might grab a gallon of gas from them, but when snowmobilers come, we get the family, we get sandwiches, they stay in the area. It's just absolutely wonderful. So accolades to that. Over the years, your group has done so much to maintain our system, and so much good work. And I attend every of those fundraisers we can have in our area, because it's always family that's there. Family means everything to me. This membership that you're talking about, the amount of money that's raised, is that through registrations or is that to become a club member?
So the main source of income is through registrations. That funds the bulk of the trail maintenance, summer construction, and winter grooming. And club dues are a small portion of that, very small portion in comparison.
And if I could follow up,
Of course.
the registration fee has been stable, or has it increased over the last few years?
I believe the increase was, I'm trying to remember now, somewhere around 2019, 2020. And that increase was to match inflation at that time. And it hasn't been increased since. And of course, inflation has been difficult, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Of course. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to Senate Bill 154? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the hearing. We will open the hearing on Senate Bill 272. Welcome, Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, Senator David Waters, District 4, to introduce Senate Bill 272. This bill arises from the EV Infrastructure Study Committee that we had last summer. And the Municipal Association came in to testify on two issues. And these are the two issues they brought forward, and this was requested by the Municipal Association that we have this bill. It does two things. The first part of the bill amends the revolving fund statute by inserting one of the things that revolving fund could be used for, and it's installing and maintaining an electric vehicle charging station. Now, if any of you folks on transportation, I know you're going to know a lot about parking fines, which is the next part of the bill. But if you look to 31:95H, which sets up revolving funds, the town, by the vote of the legislative body, can set up a revolving fund, and it can use things like fees, fines, appropriations to put in there by a vote of the public body. But then it sets up a list of things that the revolving fund can be used for, and we have to do this in statute because they can't just decide it for themselves. They can do recycling. They can do ambulance service. They can provide public service by municipal employees. They can create affordable housing. They can provide cable access. They can do energy conservation. And this would add to that list of A to G this H, that if they so choose to, they could put some. What we heard from the Municipal Association is that this is becoming especially important for tourist economy, North Country, but elsewhere, that municipalities want to be able to put some charging stations, like in my town of Dover, elsewhere within the parking garage or in downtown areas would be heavy use, and it encourages tourism, and people know they've got a place to charge from the app on their phone. They can plug it in, go do some shopping and so forth. Restaurants, lots of folks are interested in this, and just would mean that if the municipality chose to, they could use a revolving fund for that purpose and build it up through, whatever means they have, and then be able to do these projects. The second part of the bill relates to parking, and I will say that, about 10 years ago, when we first had the EV Commission and we passed legislation around designating the parking spaces that were for EVs, I thought we had put in a fine structure, but we hadn't. And so the municipalities said, well, people are parking in these spaces, and we have no mechanism to give them a ticket. So you'll see here in the bold, starting on line 14, it very much parallels the existing J, which is about disability plates. And so it says if it's any parking space so designated, specially designated, with appropriate signage, using the uniform traffic control devices for streets and highways, meeting those standards. And if it's reserved, then someone who parks there gets a $62 fine, and that amount was chosen to match other parking violations that are already in statute. So it's basically the same amount as other parking violations. And so there, and this kind of standard too, there's the fine, and then the 20% is payable to the town or city where the violation occurred. And then the rest of the bill is just some, re-lettering because this is introduced there. So that's the bill, members of the committee, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Well, you must have done a good job.
Back to finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no other speakers listed. Would anyone from the public like to speak on Senate Bill 272? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 272. And we have to wait about 5 minutes before we can go to the next one. Thank you. Let me see my phone. Oh, no, that clock is slow. We should get that fixed, Vivian.
I think every year we try to.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, Senator Fenton, and we are going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 273. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Senator Donovan Fenton, and I represent District 10. I am here to introduce an important piece of legislation, Senate Bill 273, one that is not just about policy, but about saving lives. And I'm honored to introduce Cheryl's Law in remembrance of Staff Sergeant Jesse Sherrill, who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving our state. Staff Sergeant Sherrill lost his life on the side of I-95, a tragic reminder of the dangers our law enforcement officers and first responders face every day as they work to protect us. But the heartbreak does not stop there. This past summer, our state also suffered another devastating loss. Brigadier General John Pogo Pogorek, commander of the New Hampshire Air National Guard, was killed in a hit and run while on the side of the road. These tragedies underscore the urgency of this legislation. We must act now to prevent further losses and ensure that those who serve and protect our communities, as well as all motorists, can do so safely. Cheryl's Law is a straightforward, common sense measure that strengthens our existing move over law. It clarifies motorists' responsibilities when approaching not just emergency and service vehicles, but also any stopped or standing vehicle on the roadside. Specifically, it states that drivers reduce speed when approaching a stopped or standing vehicle, displaying warning signals, change lanes if safe to do so, providing a wider berth to first responders, law enforcement, tow truck operators, roadside workers, and stranded motorists. Follow the directions of authorized personnel directing traffic and obey all applicable signals and control devices. And most importantly, move over if there is a stopped or standing vehicle, ensuring greater safety for those on the roadside. This legislation has broad support from key stakeholders. Their voices, along with the voices of families who have suffered the loss, reinforce the necessity of this bill. Cheryl's Law is about protecting everyone. It is about ensuring that those who respond to emergencies, assist stranded motorists, and maintain our roads can do so without fear of their lives. And I urge all my colleagues to join me in supporting this critical legislation. Let us honor their memories and all those who have lost their lives on the roadside, and let us take decisive action to prevent further tragedies. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fenton. Any questions? Senator Ward.
Thank you for taking my question. This bill sounds very familiar. So what's the difference between this bill and the bill we've had before that we passed?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. So the Senate has passed this bill before. We passed it last year.
Right.
We all agreed unanimously on this bill, and it got hung up in the House.
They got what?
It got stuck in the House.
Oh, okay. That's the only difference.
That's the only
Okay.
difference, yeah.
That's fine. That's all I needed to know because it seems to me we are already passed this bill. So why do we do it again?
You have a good memory, Senator. Yes, we have passed this. But I think, we've reviewed the tragedies we've had this past summer, and we realize things aren't getting better. They're getting worse. So I think it's more important now than ever to have this
Okay,
legislation.
thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fenton. The chair will now call Chris from New Hampshire State Police. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Lieutenant Chris Storm. I'm obviously from the New Hampshire State Police, and I represent the Office of Highway Safety. This is Lieutenant Joe Ronke. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon. My first name is Joseph, last name is Ronke.
Nice to see you.
So the committee knows, I thank Senator Fenton for actually introducing this bill on behalf of Jesse Sherrill and his family. I've actually had the distinct honor to serve with both men. I'm also in the Air National Guard and knew General Pogorek very well. And then obviously a dear friend of ours, Jesse Sherrill. So this one's a little tough for us, not the normal where it hits near and dear to our heart. So we are here in support of Senate Bill 273 on behalf of the state police and the Sherrill family, advocating for the expansion of the move over law to include all vehicles. This initiative is not just a matter of safety, it's common sense. And it's a common sense approach that underscores the responsibility to protect everyone on our roadways. By renaming this to Sherrill's Law, we honor Jesse Sherrill's legacy as a compassionate individual who genuinely cared about the well-being of others. This change will serve as a lasting reminder to his dedication to everybody in our community, ensuring that all drivers remain vigilant and considerate regardless of the type of vehicle they encounter. Such a law embodies Jesse's spirit of caring for everybody and reinforcing the importance of the community and mutual respect, ultimately fostering a safer environment for everybody on New Hampshire roadways. Apologize for getting a little choked up there, but appreciate your time and thank you for potentially supporting this legislation.
We are very sorry for such a great loss, and thank you both for all your service.
Thank you.
So there are people in support, but there is no one else that signed up to speak. Oh, would you like to come forward, Dan? Nice to see you, Dan.
Nice to see you too. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Dan Goodman, the manager of public affairs and traffic safety for AAA Northern New England. Apologies, I was a little late, so I signed in on the overflow chart.
I got it.
Perfect. I was afraid I was going to follow Lieutenant Storm. I don't have much else really to say. He summed it up. This bill will. I'm here in support of the bill. Excuse me. This bill will make our roads safer. I serve on the New Hampshire Governor's Highway Traffic Safety Commission, where we spend our time looking at crashes and fatals. And this is something that will save lives, reduce crashes on all New Hampshire roads. One of the issues, the big issues with our current law is that it's very nuanced. We hear from motorists in our surveys all the time that they're unaware who to pull over for, who to move over for, who to slow down. If we can simplify it and say, move over for all vehicles, whether you're a tow truck driver, whether you're Senator Ward changing your tire, you're a tow truck driver, you're a firefighter, let's slow down and move over for all vehicles. Let's simplify this. It adds that additional layer of protection for everyone on the side of the road. It may sound like common sense, and we've heard that a lot. It's common sense, so why do we need to pass this? Because people are struck and killed, like the two people we just heard about today. 350 people a year struck and killed on the side of the road. 23 roadside workers lost their life last year. That's one every 2 weeks. So, over 10 years ago, AAA was instrumental in helping write the first slow down, move over law. So we're very proud to be here to try to improve that law and expand it and make New Hampshire roads safer. And that's all I have to say, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The chair will now call Peter. Good afternoon, Peter, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Peter Marciano. I am a tow truck driver, so this law does hit close to home. What you're seeing now is my personal vehicle I use to try to promote the law to bring awareness to the public because, as he said, it should be common sense, but it's not. I do fully support this change in the law because if we can get people accustomed to seeing people on the side of the road, we can avoid tragedies like Trooper Sherrill, who is on my car. He will always stay on my car. If you see somebody changing a tire, you're going to be more apt to move over for them, and then you're going to be more apt to move over for me when I'm laying on the ground trying to clean the brick to clean a highway. I don't speak publicly very much, so if I choke on my words, I'm sorry, but I do appreciate you guys being here and having me here. So I think that's it for me. Any other questions?
I have a comment. I just want to tell you, this gave me chills when I looked at this. Like, this really says a lot about you and about the situation. And I really appreciate this.
Thank you. And Trooper Sherrill was actually a big reason for that, why I started this. I've always been passionate about it. I've been towing for 15 years. I met Jesse a handful of times, but that man left an impression. He was a trooper's trooper. He was a man's man. You know, he always had our back when we were out on the road, and it's a tragedy. I got a 14-year-old daughter, and I don't want her to live through that. So any help we can get is tremendously appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on Senate Bill 273? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing on 273. And because our last bill is not heard till 2 o'clock, and I know that I originally said we were not going to go in executive session, I would like to ask for a motion while you're all here to go in executive session on this bill.
So moved.
So all those in favor of an ought to pass on Senate Bill 273 FN, please say yes. Aye. None opposed? You probably like to speak to this on the floor, so we will not even entertain consent.
Madam Chair, thank you. I think we want to bring the family in.
Okay.
Have them show the support in the Senate.
Okay. So, the
Move
bill
to-
passes. And can we come out of executive? Oh. No.
No.
Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Thank you. Stay safe out there, everybody. We have we have 5 minutes, was perfect, right? Thank you very much. 2 minutes. I thought I was going to have to pass. Hearing on Senate Bill 274, and Senator Fenton will introduce his bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I am still Senator Donovan Fenton and represent District 10. And I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 274, which establishes a 4-year pilot program with potential for statewide expansion to improve New Hampshire's rail trails. This initiative leverages federal, state, and private funding and includes a bonded appropriation to support these efforts. Rail trails provide significant benefits to our state. They promote year-round outdoor recreation, encourage physical activity, and attract tourism. Oh, did I turn that on? No. Strengthen local economies, especially in rural communities. This bill takes an approach to investing in our existing rail trail infrastructure, ensuring that these benefits are accessible to residents and visitors alike. While there is a fiscal impact that we're very aware of, I think we're all willing to work on that and see where we can make something happen there. And I urge my fellow committee members to view this as a long-term investment. Improved rail trails will not only generate economic returns, including increased tax revenue, but also support conservation and outdoor recreation efforts across New Hampshire. I also want to highlight an amendment to the bill that removes any reference to Fish and Game Hike and Safe Fund, so no funds are being requested from Fish and Game. It allows the Bureau of Trails to subcontract portions of critical early stage work after the transfer from New Hampshire DOT, and expands the use of the trail repair funds to cover both existing and future damage, ensuring repairs can begin immediately upon authorization. This bill represents a crucial investment in our state's rail trails, enhancing their viability and long-term success. I think we've seen firsthand the positive impact of rail trails in our communities across New Hampshire, and now we have the opportunity to build on that success. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. It identifies, Senate Bill 274 identifies 4 corridors listed as starting line 7 of page 1, I believe, and going to 10. I assume there are many more rail trails in the state, or am I incorrect?
You would be correct that, the rail trails are all connected one way or another. What we did with the rail trail folks behind me is that we identified what needed help the most right now. And they can kind of explain how we went through that process and why we chose those rail trails.
Okay. Senator, should I hold my question on the funding appropriation?
You
till
better.
these
No.
people-
I'm sure there's some people behind me who would greatly like to talk about the funding. And I just want to repeat, I know the climate we're in for the budget. And if we have large fiscal notes on these bills, the intent of this bill was not to have this large fiscal note. What happened was, we were looking at this as a 4-year program, and it kind of got shoveled down to a 2-year program. That money was supposed to be spread out 4 years. And so that's kind of why you're seeing that larger fiscal note. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here to whittle down that fiscal note and make a bill happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
So on that note, I like everything about the bill. I read through everything over the weekend. I love the concept, but that fiscal note is, if I were to say today, okay, we're going to pass it, it would not get through finance. So if there's a way to make it workable, we'll have to visit that.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate your willingness to work with the bill as always. Like I said, I totally understand the climate we're in with these fiscal notes. I will say, and you're going to hear from behind me, that this is a revenue driver. So I think a small amount of investment, if we do have a fiscal note on it, is imperative because we're attracting people from all over the country to use our rail trails, and they are an economic driver for the state.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, let's see who's next. The chair will call Mike. I don't want to pronounce your last name wrong, so.
It's Mike Kowalczyk.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
And welcome.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me. And I represent the New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition, which I'm a board member. And I was also a member of the subcommittee that helped craft this bill. And I'd like to thank Donovan Fenton for being our sponsor. New NHRTC is in favor of this bill. And I'd like to just go through a little bit of the history and maybe answer the question that was asked earlier. So New Hampshire has one of the densest railroad corridor networks in the country. The state owns 334 miles of abandoned rail corridor right now. The state also owns 207 miles of active rail corridor, which could be potentially railroad trail. There are also another 91 miles that are privately owned, mostly by cities and towns, where a rail trail goes through a town and the town bought up that section. So that's a total of 632 potential rail trail miles, which is very dense. There's also potentially 20 places where we could connect with our neighboring states. I'm from Southwest New Hampshire. I live in Swansea. There's 3 places where I could connect with Massachusetts and Vermont. And when you do that, the network just gets even bigger. Also, I found this interesting when we did all this research, that 70% of the New Hampshire population and 78% of New Hampshire municipalities are within 5 miles of a rail trail. So it's close to almost everybody. And in my region, again, the Monadnock region, the rail trails go through 13 towns. And because of the towns built up around the railroads, they go right through the towns, which is very, very beneficial for a lot of reasons that I'll get into. So back in 2019, the Senate passed Bill 185, which was to basically update the state rail trail plan. And that was done, and it was jointly authored by the DOT and DNCR. And they did a great job. It includes the whole rail corridor inventory, the benefits to having rail trails, potential funding sources, the economic values, and how to actually make the improvements. So an implemented state rail trail plan assists in achieving goals of 10 other states as well. So we did a study and looked at if you had a rail trail plan, if the rail trail plan was implemented as stated, how would that benefit other state plans? And we found 10 of them. It would help with the DOT bike and ped plan, the BEA New Hampshire Outdoor Industry Inventory Summary Plan, the Fish and Game Wildlife Plan, and it kind of goes on, right? So I found that was pretty interesting, that how it could help other agencies with their plans as well. So key benefits to doing this, as Senator Fenton said, it's a generator, it's a tax revenue generator, and it also supports jobs via tourism and multi-day trips, boosting local hospitality and businesses. Net revenue comes from higher quality, more connected trails. Visitors spend 3 times more than a resident. So encouraging visitors to visit our state could bring in a lot of revenue. I do a lot of biking. I do these tours. I got a brochure recently from a company called Wilderness Voyagers, and they do tours all around the country. And when I opened up and looked at their map, New Hampshire was not included. New Hampshire could be included. We have the network. It's here. We just got to make it so people want to come and use it. We also looked up at how other states are already doing. I picked 2, Miami Valley of Ohio. They're claiming 13.4 million economic activity, and they're saying a visitor spends at least 3 nights when they visit. And in New York, the Erie Canalway, if you heard of that one, along the Erie Canal from Buffalo to Albany, 253 million annual economic impact, 1.6 million annual visits. I've done sections of this. It's beautiful. And I know at least one person behind me who's done it 6 or 7 times. Other benefits are transportation and connectivity, like daily commute. I moved to New Hampshire because of the Cheshire Rail Trail. I was working at Kodak in upstate New York. I had a job offer in Keene. I said, I'm only coming if I can bike to work every day. And they said, we can do that. We have a trail that can get you back and forth. And I biked for 20 years back and forth to work. That kept me off the road, which helped reduce traffic a little bit. And it also reduces human and vehicle collisions. Health benefits are pretty obvious, right? Promotes physical health, reduces obesity, improves physical health, reduces stress. And it also helps protect the environment, because basically we're protecting hundreds of miles of linear park. In crafting the bill, we did talk to the agencies involved. So we talked quite a bit with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. We talked with the DOT, Fish and Game, the Bureau of Economic Affairs. So we got all their input so that everyone's kind of on the same page here as to what we think is the right way to move forward with this. So the plan, as you see, is a phase 1 to try to get the whole network in place. It's a 4-year plan. It includes these 4 trails. And interestingly, when our subcommittee got started, we were looking at doing all of the state-owned rail corridor. But when we talked to DOT and DNCR, they said, that's probably too much to bite off. And it was actually recommended by DOT to do these 4 trails as a phase 1. I assume the cost to do the transfer is 0, but I really don't know how things work between departments. But to perform the trail improvements, again, over a 6-year period and get a trail to the level, my tagline is the 6-year-old can ride a bike on it is what we're looking for. We're looking at using federal grants with matches shared by the state and by the grantee, whoever's applying for the grant. For example, like maybe a town or something like that. There's money in there to increase staffing for Bureau of Trails and for Fish and Game, as you can see. And there's also then the emergency fund to try to take care of past and future disasters. And we've had many. I've got 5 washouts on the trail in my region right now that we're working on to try to get fixed. So the funding for the project work would come through the grants, as I said. The funding for the increase in staff would come through a state bond appropriation, and the disaster relief through a state bond appropriation. In the rail trail plan itself, it does show it's a revenue generator. They did a study of 9 of the 27 trails, and those 9 generate $18.7 million annually for non-motorized recreational use, $2.7 million in tax revenue. I did my own extrapolation using statistical methods, and if you look at all 27, now your annual economic contributions around 5 million, or I'm sorry, 51 to 60 million, and the tax revenue is 7.5 to 9 million a year. So kind of to conclude here, rail trail benefits are well known and well known around the country. Many states are investing lots of money, Vermont, Maine, Florida, Ohio, California. Outdoor recreation is one of the leading New Hampshire revenue resources. So this is new net revenue that we could be generating by encouraging people to come here from out of state to do multi-day trips. Because these trails go through many little towns, they're close to things. And people who businesses that want to provide this type of resource for their employees will be able to have that, right? Employees can bike to work every day, for example. So one thought is using a portion of the rail trail generated tax revenue that would increase state revenue by attracting businesses, retail workers, and increasing out-of-state multi-tourism. Finally, a world-class trail network will improve public health, provide community connection, and an overall improvement in the quality of life. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for members of the committee? Senator Prentice.
I tried moving this microphone closer this morning, but I unplugged it when I did it. So we're going to leave it there.
Okay.
It's good for me to get out of my chair every once in a while. So thank you for taking my question. And if I missed this, forgive me. Is there, have you seen any benefit to, say, property values? You know, that this is like an attractive real estate?
Sure.
I only bring this up because I notice I love my house. We have a rail trail. I live in Lebanon. We have a rail trail. It's great. But I notice in advertisements for home sales, proximity to these rail trails and the interconnectivity of them mentioned regularly. And I think that is another
Correct.
benefit.
Yeah, we found studies where actually people get more value of their property if they're near a rail trail or their house abuts one than if it doesn't. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Ward.
Thank you. How many miles is that Keene Trail?
There's 5 trails in the Monadnock region, 5 rail trails. Cheshire's 43. Ashwelot's 21 3/4.
Okay.
But the one in this bill is the Cheshire Rail Trail, which is 43.
Okay. And where this starts right in Keene and goes where to Swansea?
It starts actually on the very southern part at the New Hampshire-Massachusetts border in Fitzwilliam near Winchendon.
Oh, okay.
And it goes up through Keene and then all the way up to Bellows Falls.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. Anything
Any
else?
other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for
Okay.
your testimony
You're
and all the
welcome.
hard work you put into this.
Thank you.
The chair will now call Marianne Borowski. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marianne Borowski, and I'm the founder
and the president of the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail. I'm also vice president of the New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition. My route, the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail, is an 83-mile scenic, mostly off-road route that spans 11 towns in Coos and Grafton County. 3 of the 4 rail trails that are in this bill are part of the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail. The other one is Mike's, Cheshire. I stitched together these rail trails using dirt roads, back roads, regular roads, whatever it took to be able to piece this together into an 83-mile piece.
Wow.
I wanted to create a long-distance bike route because there's a lot of interest in bicycling vacations. I am one of those who will travel around the country. I've ridden rail trails in 49 of the 50 states. And I thought New Hampshire needed something to attract tourists like myself who want to spend their vacations on bicycles or walking even. The calendar that you got here, the cover of it is one of the rail trails in this set. It's in the Pondicherry National Wildlife Refuge up in the Jefferson-Whitefield area. And that is one of the 3 trails that are part of the Cross New Hampshire and one of the 4 that are part of this bill. So why do these rail trails matter? As Mike said too, they offer 4 seasons of recreation, whether it's biking, walking, running, horseback riding, dog sledding, snowmobiling, geocaching. There are hundreds of geocaches on these rail trails, bird watching, etc. One of the trails of the 4 that we have in this bill offers ATV riding also. So it's a wide variety of different things that happen. And along with the recreational part is the transportation alternatives, a non-motorized way of getting from place to place, from where you live to where you work, like Mike had done, or where tourists can get into town for lodgings, for food, beverage, all of that. Like the railroads, these rail trails go right through the center of town. So they're right there, right easy to access. You come in on your bicycle for ice cream, for food, for lodging, everything's right there. So by connecting these trails to form this Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail across the state, I feel we're unlocking a whole new economic driver. I call it cyclotourism, attracting visitors and their wallets, of course, to explore our North Country communities. These are not just 3 little pieces of rail trail scattered around. They're part and pieces of a system now, across New Hampshire. And in fact, they can be, and we're working on these kind of things, to connect together with Vermont to make a 180-mile long connected system. They connected into Maine, and they're also part of the New England Rail Trail Network, which is a vision from the national organization, the Rails to Trails Conservancy, to have 1,100 miles of interconnected rail trails throughout our New England states. So we are an active part of that whole thing. So we can draw tourists from all over the country to come to New England, just like the Erie Canal Trail may draw me. So there's one issue. I put the word adventure in the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail for a reason. Some sections of the rail corridors are really kind of hard to walk. They're hard to ride a bike. They may not be good for horses because they have a rough surface. There's some sand. There's big ballast rock. So essentially when the tracks and ties came up, what's left behind is our trail. So in certain places, that's a lot of ballast rock. That's cinder, the sand traps, potholes, all of that stuff. But even with that and the word adventure and the warning, this project is working. People are coming. Over the past 5 years, I've had requests from 8,000 people for the maps, like the ones I gave you. We send those out for free to anybody who requests that information. Those requests came from riders from 48 states out of our 50 and 5 different countries. Of course, a lot of people from New Hampshire are interested in this, but over half of these inquiries have come from out of state. More than 1,500 riders have completed the full route end to end. I keep track. They request a celebratory patch, so I can kind of keep track of this. 52% of these end-to-enders are from out of state. So we have been drawing in people like myself who want to travel somewhere and see some interesting place, beautiful. Take a look at all these pictures, beautiful scenery. We've also attracted media attention. We've been featured on TV along with our rail trails, Windows to the Wild, New Hampshire Chronicle, Boston Chronicle, Weekends with Yankee, also in national magazines such as Yankee Magazine, Rails to Trail Magazine, and our own New Hampshire Magazine. We know of economic and local business impact, campgrounds, B&Bs, hotels, cafes, breweries, bike shops, shuttle services. I've talked to everybody. They all see people riding the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail or walking it. One tidbit on that, there's a mill complex in Littleton that was all falling apart for many years. It's been now renovated into a big apartment complex. They currently have 60 apartments there. And they're building more. There's a cafe, there's an indoor golf, there's storage units, a gym, and all that. They call it the Rail Trail Village. And the reason why they call it that is because it borders the rail trail. And that's one of the 4 rail trails here, this new section of the Ammonoosuc Rail Trail between Littleton and Bethlehem. So people who are there can just walk out their door or walk on the rail trail and walk right into the town of Littleton. It can't be a half a mile. But the Rail Trail Village is obviously with the name, and in their brochure, mark it that the rail trail is there for people to use for recreation and transportation. So we're not just letting that ballast rock kind of sit there. We want to have something happen to it. So we've been working to try to do what we can as a non-motorized people. We don't register our bicycles. We don't register our boots. How can we help? So my organization has completed 30 rail trail improvement and restoration projects across the 3 rail trails that are part of the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Trail. We have worked in partnership with Chief Craig Rennie and his team at the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails, from doing small little fixes, little beaver deceivers to keep the beaver ponds from wiping out our trails, to major repairs and restorations on the rail corridor right away, restoring it, making sure that the water goes where it's supposed to go, in the ditches and not across the trail. This work has made this trail safer in these areas, more enjoyable for all users for year round, more resistant to these storms that are just wiping places out. They're really good for snowmobiling during the low snow season, because a smooth trail that dumps water off to the side, doesn't have ice, doesn't have rocks. You can use the trail longer in the season, early in the season, and maybe when there's not as much snow in the season. For these rail trail projects, we've received $52,000 in donations from our trail users and supporters, and we've managed to write enough grants to be able to get ourselves $210,000 in grant funding. So these rail corridors, particularly in the North Country, have been traditionally used for snowmobiling. And I think now we can show that in partnership with the Bureau of Trails and, in fact, between Mike and myself, 13 snowmobile clubs and 1 ATV club, that we can share these trails successfully year-round. So expanding to year-round use brings year-round economic ability to businesses along the way. They're not just going to be busy in snowmobile season. They can be busy year-round because now we've got people on these trails. We also bring in new source of volunteers, friends of the rail trails, and a new source of grant funding and donations. So I think that this project could work because we have a proven track record already. The cyclotourists are coming in. We've shown economic benefits, and this is just this my little group and this one little trail. I mean, we have all this around the state. We can successfully get grant funding. The granting agencies seem to think that these rail trails are a good thing for our community for a variety of reasons, whether it's health, business, stay, work, play, bringing people in, young people in to enjoy our communities. And we've also shown that we've been able to successfully work with the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails, with Chief Rennie and his team, also the snowmobile clubs and ATV clubs. So the framework is there. We just need Senate Bill 274 or something to be able to help us to hit the ground running. We can accelerate our projects, we can accelerate our progress, and accelerate the outdoor recreation economy, accelerate the tax revenue dollars coming in. And the last thing I want to say is that, as it says in the title of this bill, it's a pilot program. So that kind of gives us, the team here, a little more incentive to do a good job. We're kind of in the spotlight. If we do a good job here, we open the door for other rail trail organizations around the state to maybe follow in our footsteps. And I believe our team can do this. So I would urge you to support this bill, and I thank you very much for your time here. I appreciate being here, and thank you, Senator Donovan, for being our sponsor.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Madam. Your energy is infectious. You're a wonderful, wonderful person. A lot of involvement with whether it be bike trails or rail trails. Having an advocate like you is wonderful, and you should be commended for that.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, philosophical. You don't have to answer me. You can get back to me. So, I'm encouraged that, you know, it's multimodal, snowmobiles are on it and all and so forth. Snowmobiles are paying a fee every year, and they're helping maintain that trail. And you, as volunteers, are doing a wonderful job to collaboratively raise funds. But don't you think we're getting to a time that that bicyclists should be also participating and generating even more money that the Trails Division could then, you know, capture and put in there? You don't have to run me off of my chair, but I want you to think about it. Ray Burton had it for years. Ray Burton always said that, you know, we're doing a great service on the road, you know, with bicycles, but there comes a time people should pay. Might you consider that, or in a conversation, in people that are running tours through, that they're paying a per person fee?
You are not the only one to ask this question. It has been discussed, and it's been discussed in our Rail Trail Coalition meetings and all of that. Kind of consider ourselves the walkers and bicyclists on these trails sometimes as kind of the freeloaders, because the snowmobiles are out there grooming the trail systems, and we're out there on our skis. They're maintaining these trails, and we're out there biking on them. We call up the Bureau of Trails and say, there's a tree down. So yeah, you're right. And there's been talk about, well, maybe this should apply to the e-bikes, that maybe they should be registering. It's gone back and forth, and the arguments on each side are good. And I think that discussion is not going to stop. I don't have an answer for it right now. I can list the positives and the negatives on both sides of that. For me personally, what I've done to try to remedy that is to try to work with the snowmobile clubs, work with the Bureau of Trails, and bring in money to help. So I write RTP grants to try to fix the trail so that it's not only better for people walking on it, it's better for the snowmobiles. We have a project in the Lisbon area with the ATV club. I'm a member of the ATV club. They didn't like sections of the trail because it's so dusty and rutted and all of that. So we worked together. The Cross New Hampshire put in match funding to be able to try to put down a hard packed surface. And it was an amazing success. It's an ADA compliant surface that's down in sections of this trail. So that's kind of, in the meantime, until that question that you ask gets resolved one way or the other, I figure the best we can do for myself, for Mike and his organization and other organizations within the New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition, the best thing we can do now is kind of hitch our wagon onto the Bureau of Trails and say, how can we help? What can we do? How do we donate? How do we donate our time? So at least I feel like we're doing something to help out with that.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The chair will call Boyd Smith, is it? I was thinking the same thing.
The guy with the one syllable last name,
Well,
first name too. Hello, my name is Boyd Smith. Live in Concord, New Hampshire. I'm repping as the public, but I'm very, very, very proud to be working with Mike and Marianne, who you've just heard speak. You've got a copy of the letter that I sent in, and I think I only want to touch on some of those highlights as I go through it. But if you don't mind, a couple thoughts came to mind. I think that'll supplement what we've heard so far. And that is, first of all, when I got interested in trying to advance rail trail growth and use and improvements in the state of New Hampshire, I knew about the RTC, New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition. And I'd met Mike and Marianne briefly a couple of years ago. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this, you're going to have some help. And I thought they were two of the best people in the state to approach. And I did. And they said, yes, we're willing to help. And as you can see, they're top drawer. The question had come up about the 4 trails, and we've met with the DOT and the DNCR together jointly a couple of times last year in April and August. And I think it was the August meeting. We're aware that the two agencies have talked back and forth about transferring trails from DOT to DNCR. I think it was in August when the proposal of these particular 4, at least that was the first time I had heard it, and it sounded like the agencies had been in discussion. And my point is, I think that was totally coincidental. I mean, we didn't say, how about these trails, how about those trails? But they happened to be 4 trails that the agencies chose that landed in these 2 areas where we've got very, very effective project managers. So serendipity, coincidence, I don't know, but that's the way I recall that setting up. The other thing is that we've really, and I think Mike said this in his testimony, but we've really leaned heavily, our strategy, here's the rail trail plan he mentioned. This really is a really, really well done document. There's a lot of information in there. And there's also recommendations. They include funding recommendations, which is a suite of everything from a bond, which was ultimately what we thought might make sense to propose. There was a logic to it, to a number of fees that could be implemented. And we talked about the fees, and there are challenges. I think Marianne said it well, but there's fees recommended in here, there's state funding recommended in here, and we're well aware of those. It's a great guiding document. So with that being said, for sort of adding a little bit, I just wanted to tell you, well, first of all, I'm asking that we're in support of this very much. Realize it is a money ask. We've been told for months now that the agency heads have been told to cut their budgets, and so they cannot ask for money, and we understand that. And the chances of, we hope to get in front of finance, from this committee to finance with something that you guys feel is successful, has a shot at it, because we're really just trying to give our best shot. That being said, if we can find a way to move this ball down the field, I think we'll be well served. No matter what the final outcome is with this session, I think it's worth talking about, and I'm hearing that from a lot of people. So hope we can find a way to vote for this. So I was introduced to rail trails, like most of the good ideas in our family, was my wife's idea. And back in 2014, I had to check the photos to see when it actually was, we rode from Pittsburgh, PA to Washington, D.C. You end up within sight of the Watergate Hotel, because the last lock on the Potomac, or the first one going upstream, they called it the Watergate. And combined, that's 150 miles of rail trail along the former what they call the Great Allegheny Passage, and about 185 miles of the C&O, which was a canal that was built. There's a great story behind it, lots of history. But anyway, we've got a tow path, and you stitch them together, and you can ride that 150, 180, 335 miles without a car, and you're following the river, and you're going through the woods, and especially on the Gap side, which was the the railroad side, there are towns on regular intervals, every 20 or 30 miles, because they were railroad towns. You hit the C&O, it's a national park, you got to get off it a little bit. So anyway, we rode that 335 miles. We had 9 days of perfect weather in September. It will never be recreated again. There's no way. It's beautiful. The surface is solid. The signage is good. The amenities are there. It's really handy. So we stayed locally. We ate locally. We bought snacks for the trail locally. I don't know what the dollars were, but they're the 10 days, $1,500 maybe, not counting transportation to get there, a couple $1,000. They have $1.5 million or something in visitors. So while we were doing that ride and loving it, we met a couple, we'd hopscotch with them, from Alaska that came to ride the trail, from Massachusetts, where I learned that MIT has a requisite swimming program, from Northwest PA, which doesn't sound like it's that far, but it's probably 250 miles anyway, and us from Concord, New Hampshire. We all came and did multi-day rides on that trail. And it was just a blast. And then I got hooked up with the NHRTC group and went to a conference they had biannually in October of 2023. And there was 75 or 100 people in the room. And one of the questions asked of the group was, what do you think is, we should do as an organization? And the rail trail plan was out because that was 22. This is a year later. And the consensus is that's numero uno. Let's take this part of the plan that says we need to build the agency capacity. We need to get some state funding in the game. That's how all these successful projects around the country work. Someone at the top says we're going to make it happen, and they make it happen. And so between that and my experience, and I was about to retire and needed something worthwhile to do, here I am. Lucky enough to catch up with these guys for sure. So just run it. So economics again, because I know that's important. Mike mentioned this is a revenue generator. It absolutely hands down is. There's no question about it. We could have reams of paper demonstrating it, but there's no point. It's a fact. If you have any doubt, let me know. We'll give you more information. Currently, according to the UNH study that's included in this plan, there's $2.7 million a year, this is several years ago, generated in tax revenue. Total economic benefit, obviously, got a multiplier, straight up tax revenue. Extrapolating out, that's where we come up with a 7.5 to 9 million a year in tax revenue. And we understand most of that's through rooms and meals and the BPT, and also well aware those revenue sources are oversubscribed, and we get it, understood. That's sort of a different issue, I guess, but it's real. So that's New Hampshire, and that's with trails that are as rough as you might not be able to walk on them to stuff that you can push a baby carriage down. So I took a look at the Great Allegheny Passage, and by the way, if you can get an electronic copy of my testimony, those are links if you wanted to link to them. They don't do you any good in paper, but they're links. So back in 2020 or 2021, I think where the data came from the GAP, they said they're generating more than 121 million a year to the region. And they decided to divide that by miles of trail, and they came up with, and that's right, it's just a stat, $800,000 per mile of trail. So I took a quick look at our rail trail network in New Hampshire divided by a median of $8 million, not 7.5 to 9, and we've got $24,000 a mile of trail. And Boyd's conclusion is there's a lot of room for growth there. And we've always known it, we've stated it, we believe it, but that's a 40-fold factor in increase. So call it 5 or 10 and we're heading in the right direction. There's real money to be made in a lot of good ways that really fit New Hampshire's lifestyle. They fit our economy. They fit our environment. And if you look at the CNO, there's a similar report that's linked in there. It tells the same kind of story. I happen to know the owner of the Danbury Country Store. I don't know if you guys have ever been up there. It's about halfway on the northern trail between Boscawen and up to Lebanon. It's a great stop point. And they've boomed, they've done well. And I asked Audrey, who's the owner, I said, you seeing any results from, the trail being nearby? She says, absolutely. I have no doubt that's a story that gets repeated near any section of trail, whether you're a coffee shop in Derry or Danbury Country Store up, in the middle of the northern, which is our longest trail. So just to wrap it up, there's a bunch of different benefits from rail trails. And I'm talking economic now because those are hard numbers. We can fill some of our gaps. We've got structural fiscal issues in the state, I believe, as getting to be old guy that's been around for a while. Tourism is number one north of the Notches. I agree, north of the Whites. Number two in the southern part of the state, as I understand it. We've got an opportunity to bring in tourism, build tourism, all that comes with it. It does help health. You look at the health numbers, all those health benefits Mike mentioned, property values that the other senator mentioned. It's just, there's almost nothing, I can't imagine, anything going wrong. I've had people say, there's going to be people running behind my backyard. And 2 years later say, this is great. Oh, there's going to be people throwing litter around. No, it doesn't happen. It starts getting used by the public. So nothing but good things to say about rail trails. And if you can help us, keep working on this bill so we can get it up to finance, try and get some money, and start building the capacity that's required to make this happen, as outlined in the plan, we'd be deeply grateful. And Senator Fenton, thank you very much for helping us get this far. Appreciate it. So I'm good for questions if you have any.
Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony.
All right. Thank you very much.
The chair will call Captain Michael Eastman. And I apologize, I have a Senate duty, I have to go, but I will be passing the gavel over to Senator McConkey. Before I do, I just want to say that 90 people registered in support for this and only 7 opposed. So I just wanted that in the record. Okay, thank you all for coming. And forgive me for my having to leave.
Captain Eastman, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Michael Eastman. I'm captain with the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. I'm actually the OHRV coordinator. I will speak to the law enforcement portion of this. So this is my 23rd year with Fish and Game, and throughout that 23 years, I have conducted in some way, shape, or form enforcement on a lot of the rail trails throughout the state. And what I can say is that where they do get used a lot by a myriad of users, to include hunters and fishermen. I've checked both out on using rail trails to access brooks that run through them or woodland areas. So certainly we are out there patrolling. A lot of that fund comes from OHRV or snowmobile registrations because of some of the trails being closed to OHRV use and snowmobiles at certain times. Whereas a lot of that maybe adverse interaction has been fallen upon the OHRV and snowmobile community, and we were given the opportunity to kind of have some input, obviously, on this as well. We certainly would be the ones, as we are out there now, patrolling, would have, funds should come from another place, as you spoke earlier, and that if we're going to be out there, and we're the ones suited to be out there, whereas most of these rail trails run through the woodlands and over the rivers, that that funding mechanism would be great for us to be able to be out there and above the OHRV community. I will say that my commission, the Fish and Game Commission, was opposed to this bill originally due to the fact that there was language for Hike Safe. The Hike Safe program has been a fantastic program for our folks that are lost in the woodlands of the state. I don't think that the funds from that should go to this program, just because really it is extremely successful, and we wouldn't want to deter from that success. So, with the amendment, my commission was willing to be in favor and support this bill, so that certainly, like I said, we will be out there patrolling, and there are a myriad of benefits for these trails being out there. So really, that's what I came to say today, is that we are in support of it with the amendment, and that thank you for your time.
Thank you. Captain, any questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have from DNCR, Mr. Rennie, please. Okay. Brian Wilson also will be joining. Gentlemen, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Rennie. I'm the Chief of the Bureau of Trails at the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And with me is Director Brian Wilson, Parks and Recreation Director. And DNCR isn't taking a position on the bill, but we just wanted to provide some facts about our Bureau and what we do, and a little bit of background on the State Rail Trail Plan. So the Bureau of Trails is responsible for maintaining and managing 1,000 miles of OHRV trails, over 7,000 miles of snowmobile trails, actually 260 miles of roads and trails in the Connecticut Lakes Headwaters property in Pittsburgh, and then over 300 miles of rail trail properties throughout the state. So the Bureau of Trails is entirely funded by motorized registration fees, so OHRVs and snowmobiles. And the majority of those funds are dispersed through our grant and aid program. So those monies are given out to the organized snowmobile and OHRV clubs to help maintain and improve the trail system. So So again, we're all funded by, you know, the registration fees, and then those are parsed out to there's 100 snowmobile clubs and about 24 ATV clubs that apply for those funds. So of the 300 miles of state-owned rail trails, all of them are well used and beloved by many different user groups. We heard today, including snowmobiles. There's a few with ATVs, walkers, runners, bicyclists, equestrian, you name it, cross-country skiers, snowshoers, dog mushers, and I think we even heard maybe geocaching is happening out on the state rail trails. So the New Hampshire State Rail Trails Plan was developed in 2022, and that detailed, you know, a future rail trail plan for development and investment, and that was part of that 2019 Senate Bill 185. The scope of that plan, and still, you know, in print, is a statewide economic impact analysis on the value of rail trails, developed recommendations for a state funding mechanism to support rail trail projects and management. It documented state commitment and support for the development of rail trails for their transportation, recreation, tourism, and other economic value. And then a copy of that is on DOT and our website to look at. But overall, we feel Senate Bill 274 would assist with the implementation of the New Hampshire State Rail Trail Plan to rehabilitate, maintain, and improve the trail system, or the rail trail system. And part of that is to transfer ownership of over, I think it's 68 miles total of rail corridors from DOT to DNCR for that improvements. Continue to enhance and maintain already existing rail trails that we're managing, and then provide $2 million for staffing, equipment, and materials for Bureau of Trails and Fish and Game, and then $1 million for emergency trail repair funds. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the bill is proposing. But again, these trail systems are well used, and the funds that we have dedicated is motorized funds through registration fees. And so, but there are many other user groups that are wanting to help out. In fact, we've through the Cross New Hampshire Adventure Group, you heard from Marianne, we've been able to, through GNC approval, accept donations to help with some of the rail trail improvements and some rail pulling and expanding the trail system. So that's gone well, and we're all collaborating together to make those improvements. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's just an overview of the Bureau.
Questions? I have, and I don't know which of you two gentlemen would be more appropriate. So I understanding the funding source for the snowmobiles, off-road vehicles are paying their fee, spoken to earlier by the captain. The grant aid program is monies that you then provide to your groups that work. Should I have a concern that if we were to pass this, that an unequal amount of emphasis on future grant programs, not necessarily through your department, but whether it be CMAQ grants or whatever, because of the energy this would then be channeled more to these trails than others. It's all about scoring. I've been on all ledgers of this, trying to get funding for bike trails, and I've been the person that sat there and scored them. Do you have that concern?
Well, some of the federal, like the TAP grants, for example, you know, some of those come with restrictions for motorized use, where like motorized OHRVs aren't allowed on portions of trails that use that federal funding source. But fortunately, on the federal funding end of things, snowmobiles are exempt from that. They're not considered motorized vehicles under federal law somehow. So most of the rail trails in the state we do snowmobile on. I think all of them. But on the ATV side, there's only a few, you know, the Amanuense, there's a few around the state that we do use, but, and some have year-round use as well, but not all of the 300 miles are open to OHRVs because of some of those federal fundings.
Thank you. On the question on the emergency trail repair fund, we know that this is such a needed program throughout the state, not just on this section, throughout. Would I be to understand that this emergency trail repair fund would be for the purpose in the first 4 years of this pilot program to go to these sections of rail trail? only.
My understanding is that that emergency trail repair fund would be available to all the rail trails throughout the state that we manage, so that it, we had large washouts, you may be aware, in Swansea a few years ago with the summer storms, and there's just large segments of the trail missing. And those are going to cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars with engineering design and that sort of thing. So those are still closed and not open at this time.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yep. Good question.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I have no one else to speak. Does anyone that spoke before wish to speak again? Or someone that has not spoke? Do I have you on the list, madam? I'm sorry, your name? I don't. Before you leave, just add yourself to the list. Okay, please. I'm sorry.
Right, well, so you probably don't have my
Turn on the mic.
All right, great. Hello, thank you so much. I'm Corinne Benfield with Staywork Play, New Hampshire. Thank you for having me. Great.
We
So,
have your testimony, madam.
okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So, Staywork Play, New Hampshire, we're a statewide nonprofit dedicated to attracting and retaining young Granite Staters. I'm here to share our strong support for SB 274 and to also represent the voice of who we like to call YPs in New Hampshire. So that's the 18 to 40-year-old range. That's who we serve at Staywork Play, New Hampshire. I've outlined our full support and alignments in the letter that we've submitted. I'm glad that you have it. But I also wanted to take a moment just to underscore a few of the key points on why we are in full support of this legislation. Not only is it very worthwhile, but it's also hugely impactful to how we at Staywork Play will achieve our mission. So first, just to echo a lot of what my fellow supporters have said, outdoor recreation is a top reason why young people choose New Hampshire and choose to stay in New Hampshire. According to Staywork Play's 2023 Quality of Life Index survey, which is one of the core functions of our organization, outdoor recreation consistently has ranked as one of the most important factors for young people when deciding to stay or to relocate and to stay in New Hampshire. It's not just a perk, it's actually a driver of retention. Improving and expanding our rail trail network will strengthen New Hampshire's reputation as a place where young people can thrive, work, and build meaningful lives here in the 603. Also, employers are leveraging outdoor recreation as a competitive advantage. With 27% of our workforce nearing retirement age, and actually that number I think is growing based on some recent demographics from the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute that was released earlier this week. New Hampshire is competing against our neighboring states in a really competitive workforce climate. So our employers in New Hampshire are using outdoor recreation as a way to stand out amongst our competing neighbors. Trails like these are more than just amenities. They're really recruitment tools as well. They make New Hampshire attractive to the next generation of workers by showcasing a lifestyle and a balance that many young people want. SB 274 would significantly enhance this narrative and position our state as a destination for top talent. Also, this New Hampshire lifestyle really is a balance between strong economic opportunity that we see here in New Hampshire, as well as a healthy balance of accessible and really plentiful, lovely outdoor recreation that's integrated into your daily life as a young person. So New Hampshire lifestyle, that's kind of what we're going for with our positioning. Rail trails also connect communities and strengthen New Hampshire. Our rail trails build physical and social crossroads, connecting rural communities, improving access to towns and cities, and fostering regional collaborations. These trails are more than paths. They're really lifelines that promote mobility and community building. More young people want to live in community. We have seen that as a growing trend. So having this interconnectivity built on the backs of these rail trails, it would be really impactful to seeing New Hampshire capture that trend. So, you know, having New Hampshire residents, businesses, and visitors feel more connected really would lead to folks feeling more rooted in New Hampshire as well. I won't talk about how rail trails are an economic driver. I think my friends behind me have really covered that, which is lovely. So yeah, just in closing, I think, you know, coming from the voice of young people here in the Granite State, having accessible rail trails and really having an integrated active lifestyle is key, both when we're looking to attract workforce and closing that gap that is so prevalent and is a very top issue in our state. You know, rail trails really could do that, and this bill would be incredibly impactful. New Hampshire is the best state in the country, so if we can utilize our assets to really tell that story, why not? This bill absolutely does that, and so we are in strong support of SB 274, and thank you so much for your consideration, and thank you, Senator Fenton, for sponsoring this bill and for being such a champion of these issues. So,
Thank you for your testimony. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Wonderful.
I signed
Thank
you
you.
in, madam. You're all set.
okay, yeah, thank you.
Oh, sounds good. Yes, you ladies are. I apologize. Ms. Winters from New Hampshire DOT, please, welcome. Yep.
So for the record, my name is Shelley Winters. I'm the Director of the Division of Aeronautics, Rail, and Transit at the Department of Transportation. I, with Mr. Rennie, had a heavy hand in the development of the 2022 State Rail Trails Plan. This bill seems to start to further and take some of the recommendations and try to get to an implementation phase. Again, we're not here to advocate for the funding level. That is something that DNCR was more heavily involved in. We are supportive of the concept of moving the ownership of the roughly 69 miles of these 4 corridors over to DNCR. The department has said before, we have no dedicated staffing or funding for recreational rail trails, and recreational rail trails probably fit better under Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, Bureau of Trails. So again, as 2 agencies, we've got together when this plan was finished, and we started to come up with a priority order of which corridors should transfer. Again, that's how we arrived at the 4 that are in this bill. And then they worked with some of the sponsoring entities relative to the funds. What I am here to say on behalf of the department is that, again, we know the mileage needs to change. We've talked about that, but the Emergency Rail Trail Fund, we just want to make sure that should this move forward, that it's clear that the DOT, even with the proposed transfer, would still own over 50% of the recreational rail trails in the state. So we want to ensure that any emergency fund that is established, that the funds also be appropriated to or available to the Department of Transportation should we need to do repair or maintenance, much like DNCR and other state agencies. Again, we don't have the dedicated funding. So again, questioning on the wording, it seems to infer that that would go to Natural and Cultural Resources, Bureau of Trails. So we would ask for consideration of including the Department of Transportation in there just based on ownership. We do partner with DNCR in the management, a lot of the trails that we would still technically own. But again, just to ensure there's no ambiguity going forward, if they were implemented from a funding standpoint, we'd ask for consideration of that clarity. Again, we are not seeking through this bill any dedicated staffing or direct funding to continue to do what we do today. We're just looking for consideration of that emergency fund were established, that we be able to utilize that, and we will continue to operate under the working relationships with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources for the daily management of those corridors, which we would retain. And again, as the proponent said, this is a pilot, so should this move forward and be successful, the department will continue to talk about the next corridors that could be transferred again for recreational use, so that they can lie with an agency whose mission is more aligned with recreational use than the Department of Transportation. So Again, with that, we think that the rail trail plan had some great recommendations that had a lot of input from statewide users of trails, funders of trails, and legislative bodies, and we're excited about the potential implementation through a pilot program, and welcome any questions that you may have for the department.
Thank you, Shelley. Questions? Yes, please. Sandra Ward.
I'm curious, where are these 68 miles that you're going to transfer?
Most of them are, well, roughly 40 miles are in the southwestern part of the state. So that's the Cheshire Rail Trail is 39.9 miles. And then we've got the Presidential Rail Trail, the Pondicherry section that was talked about before. That's 1.8 miles. Up north, the Ammonoosuc Rail Trail is 19.3 miles. And then a section yet to be named up in the Littleton Bethlehem area is 6.9 miles. So
Okay, when you said 68, I sort of envisioned that 68 miles of something, but what you're talking about in different places.
right, 4 different
Okay,
trails that
okay.
the mileage adds up to 68. I think it says 83 in the original, but amendment may be coming to clarify that mileage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions? I would just like to say, Director, I'm loving all this energy between your great group and this acronym, I just can't get there. DNCR. So thank you for all that. And if you have a moment to talk after we're done here, I have a different question for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you.
Okay, unless there's a third sheet out there I don't know about, which I'm not saying there wouldn't be. We will now call 274 to a close. And does the committee have any other business needs to discuss? No reason to stay beyond 3 o'clock. All right. With that, we will recess for the day. Thank you.